What a surety bond is a three-party contract, party between the obligor and obligee. That's the two main parties. And then, of course, the surety, who's the guarantor. Let me give you a good example that'll help you out. So what a lot of people think of a surety bond, they think of like a performance bond and payment bond, which is, let's say a company goes and does a contract, say builds a school for, your local government. Surety bond guarantees that they're going to perform according to the terms of the contract, and all material vendors and all subs get paid, right? So therefore, if there's a dispute, we're not putting a lien on the building and everything being held up, and instead it gets completed pretty quickly. It's about helping our clients get to work, because that's the key here. How do we get them to work as fast as possible and make the burden on the administrative side a little bit less?
Welcome back to Constructive, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Excited to get into bonding today with Gary. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, good. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Gary Eastman. I'm president of SwiftBonds and Axcess Surety. We do surety bonds, which, as you probably know, nobody knows about. So what would you like to know today?
Well, start with what a surety bond is, maybe. I think some of my audience might not have a great understanding, so maybe they're thinking it's insurance related or something like that, but explain a little bit.
Yeah, so that's a great point. So although it is in the insurance field, it is not insurance. So insurance is kind of a risk-sharing product. Surety bonds are different. It's really more of a guarantee. And specifically what a surety bond is a three-party contract, party between the obligor and obligee. That's the two main parties. And then, of course, the surety, who's the guarantor. And the reason that people use surety bonds rather than guarantees is that the guarantee, you have to figure out the underlying dispute first, and then the guarantor will pay. Surety bonds don't work that way. You go directly to the surety to make sure that everything gets done. So let me give you a good example that'll help you out. So what a lot of people think of a surety bond, they think of like a performance bond and payment bond, which is, let's say a company goes and does a contract, say builds a school for, your local government. Well, if it's over $125,000, the surety bond is going to be required. And so what happens there is that, the surety bond guarantees that they're going to perform according to the terms of the contract, and all material vendors and all subs get paid, right? So therefore, if there's a dispute, we're not putting a lien on the building and everything being held up, and instead it gets completed pretty quickly. And so that surety is directly contracted with the school, basically, to guarantee that this gets done. So that's why all these projects that are, government related actually get done on time and according to the terms of the contract.
Yeah, that's perfect, because I think you probably could have guessed with the title of my podcast, Constructive. My audience is mostly in the construction industry, but I think even like general contractors, the reason I brought up insurance is like if they're residential GC, they probably don't deal with bonding as much. They would think more in the lines of insurance, but if they move up and do some more commercial building, they're going to need to kind of understand bonding capacity and what really makes it different, and maybe how to increase their bonding capacity. A lot of times I hear contractors wanting to be able to do that. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so let me talk about what that is. So you're right. This is mostly in the commercial world, although we're seeing it more go into it a little bit of residential world. Certainly in the government world, we see it all the time. See it now a lot in the private part of commercial construction. Now, when it comes to capacity, what does that mean? So there are two parts to a bond. One, each individual bond. How much can you get per job? That's what we call the individual part. And then your aggregate. How much in total can you have going that are bonded at any time? So in our world, there's kind of three tiers. The first, you've got the simple tier, which is, either $1 million or $750,000 and lower. Those are where starting companies can come in and say, hey, we've done some jobs. We have really good credit. So give us some bonds based solely on you surety taking a flyer on us based on good credit. Now, once you go above that, about to $1.5 million to $2 million, well, then that's when the underwriters jump in, because this is a guarantee, right? They're guaranteeing the entire project, and they want financial statements, usually P&Ls and balance sheets, personal financial statement, just to make sure that client, can continue to handle jobs of those sides. And then above that, we have, the full underwriting where they want, reviewed CPA statements, those. That's the basics. Now, the question is, how do you graduate to continue to get your bonding program to expand? And there's a couple of things that tend to get looked at. One, your experience. Have you done jobs of a certain size? Most sureties are reluctant to go more than 2 times what people have done before. So if you've only done a $500,000 job, you can't really go to a $3 million job, right? They're going to want to keep you at that double at most. And then the second piece is good financial statements. Many clients, they like to have, financial statements that look terrible because they want to take all the money out for tax purposes. That's great for tax purposes, but terrible for bonding. So for bonding, what they want to do is, continue to show that they have good, what they call tangible net worth typically, or good assets. But typically it's working capital. Why working capital? Many bond claims come when, construction companies get upside down, right? So they've taken on too much work. Somebody stops paying for 90 days. Now they can't make payroll, issues or something like that. So if they have plenty of working capital, then they know that they can handle those bumps until they get paid. And so those are the things that they tend to look at is, hey, how much cash do you have? Have you done jobs of this size? Do you have this experience? Because, those tiers really do change how the jobs work. They seem to be similar, but they're not. And so by making sure your balance sheet and your experience continues to climb up, that's how you get more and more bonding. I hope I explained that okay.
You did. Are there any like red flags that come up that I might not suspect, but like things that you see? Maybe these are things we want contractors to avoid, but like what kinds of things hurt a company's bonding capacity?
Yeah, I mean, some of the basics I think people understand. Hey, I've got really poor personal credit. Because you may say, well, my company's doing great. Yes, but if your personal credit's really terrible, that bleeds over, because sometimes you'll see, where people are just spending too much money personally, and then they start having to take money out of the business. And so, we see that as a negative red flag. I've seen that also for spouses, right? Where their spouse has terrible credit. Well, why? It may be completely unrelated to the company, but it certainly is a red flag that gets checked out. Other things that we've seen are clients that suddenly have a spike in spending, those types of things. And then, of course, anything that has a problem with like character or any of those types of things where they see that saying, hey, there's something that's off here. Normally, what we see is just clients that don't have enough cash flow or cash buffer. And quite frankly, the one that you see the most is not a nefarious problem. It's that I've expanded too fast. And when we see clients like that, then we have to take a hard look of how can we make sure that this one doesn't have a problem. Many times they don't, but we would just want to double check.
What do you see in the future? Like, how are things changing the way bonds are issued? Is it getting harder, easier?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in the current environment, it is harder than it was. So in the last 2 years, we've seen sureties tighten up their underwriting. There have been a couple of huge claims that have caused that for certain markets. And quite frankly, we're just seeing more deterioration in, clients due to 1,000 different reasons. There are also, what we call worries in the marketplace. So we believe going forward that the biggest worry is going to be labor, right? There's not enough labor today. We don't think there's going to be enough labor in the future. That's always a problem. But there are also other, what I'm going to call unknown problems that are kind of lurking around the corner. Number one, material shortages. We believe that the California wildfires have not worked its way through the system. And so there's probably material shortages that may come, or at least bumps. The reason that's important is if you bid on a fixed rate contract and suddenly your material costs jump up, you could have a default. So we worry about that. Costs are a worry all the time, right? So it used to be costs would predictably go up. Well, nothing's predictable anymore. I mean, they're all over the board. Jobs that last year were $800,000 are now $1.2 million. That's not a normal jump. And we're just seeing this so much that what we try to do is we tell people, hey, you have to be super careful how you bid, put in material escalators when you can. We think that's a structural issue that will continue on, and one that we probably try to make part of everything that we do, education to our clients as well as underwriting. That's kind of the biggest concern that we really see going forward. The sureties also see that, and so that's why they make it a little bit more difficult now than it was a couple of years on. And so that's just part of the issues that we have to deal with our clients.
Cool. Yeah, and I've been in kind of owner's representative roles for the past 6 or so years and had the opportunity at times to try to help smaller contractors do work that's a little bit above what they've been doing in the past. And I like that you mentioned that because I ran into that issue with like if you're trying to do double the size of job, that's a big jump, and going beyond that, it's going to be hard to bond. I also ran into like just contractors not really having the right paperwork lined up and ready in a folder. Can you talk about some of the things that contractors should be gathering in a place where it's easily accessible so that when it comes time, they have it ready?
And that's a great question. We joke that bonding is a paper game, right? So you have to be able to just to show the right thing. So what we try to do and what we educate our clients on are one, providing the basic information, name of the company, all the owners. But really the stuff beyond that is one, can we show good experience of this level? Two, do we have references if needed? That's for larger jobs typically. And then it's P&Ls and balance sheets for the last 3 years. And then if it's towards the end of the year, interim statements, a good personal financial statement. And then we build on top of that. And the things that we use to build on top of that are AR and AP aging schedules, right? We don't like to see that your AR is growing. So, too much, especially if it goes past 90, then you're like, well, how much of that are you writing off? And then of course, cash in the bank. So you can use that by bank statements. The one thing that's on top of all that is having a bank credit line, especially if one is unused. People always like, hey, I'd fund everything myself. That's what most contractors do. We say, get that bank credit line. It can go right to your, tangible net worth or specifically your cash flow, so that you can show, hey, if somebody stops paying me for 90 days, it hurts because I got to pull on my line, but it's not going to tank my business. That's usually the key piece here. So those are the things to gather, right? And then keep that updated as things go on. Because what we want to do is build a case, especially right away when we go out to talk to underwriters, because then they're like, hey, you've done all the right things. That's on the underwriting side. The other part is bids, right? We work with our clients a lot on how to bid projects. And so what we say is, look, if you've never bid before, go get a bunch of, Freedom of Information Act requests. People are bidding in your area. You're going to look about 10 of these, and after about the fifth one, you'll be like, hey, I've picked out the patterns of who does what and what they like to do. So that's easy. So you can start to see margins and how that fits within your business and how that makes sense. We have clients that, do something over here, but when they start looking at the bonded work, they're like, oh, this is a smaller piece for us normally, but in the bonded world, that's suddenly become a high margin. Let's go after that. The second thing that we see is there's seasonality to it. So a lot of people bid on projects early in the year, so the margins are lower. We have a few clients that won't bid on anything until after July. So like, hey, everybody's full of work. There's fewer bidders. We'll go with that.
Cool. I want to see this. It might not go as well as I hope, but I think you're going to do great. I just want to do a thought experiment of if I was going to start a construction company today and I had, let's say, just $50,000 in the bank. How would you go about managing those books so you could try to get $1 million bond in a year or two?
Yeah. So what I would do is I'd first go out and just, I'd set up my business a year ago just so I have some time history, even if I haven't done any jobs. I go get a bond line of $200,000, $250,000. And there are companies out there that'll take a flyer on you, even if you've never done a job. And then the first thing I try to do is do some of those $150,000, $200,000 jobs, keep that margin, keep it in the bank. You can do 3 or 4 of those in the first 6 months. Easy. The other thing that people think of is they think of margin as the total number, but it needs to be velocity of money along with it as well. So a 20% margin for a year job is good, but a 10% margin job that you can do one a month, after 6 months, that's 60%. I mean, it's just worth way more. So start rolling through that and then start getting those bigger and bigger jobs. That's really key. In that first year, you can do that $500,000 to $600,000 job. Then that second year, you can get that $1 million job. The reason that's so important is, as I said before, a lot of contractors stay at that cheap and easy stage only. But once you get up to that second stage, there are fewer competitors. And then you can start going after those things where there's only one or two bidders. I mean, we have, for example, one client in the middle part of the country. They're the same three bidders on every single job. They all know what they do. So sometimes they'll rotate jobs, not on purpose, but it's just, if that guy takes this job, then I know I'm getting the next one because, he just took my job. You get used to that and you want to be a part of that, rotation.
Is there any myths you want to bust about surety bonds or any lies that you've heard contractors repeat?
Yeah. Surety bonds are not insurance. And so when they come and say, hey, this job is no risk, it doesn't matter. And this is the part that people don't understand. They're like, oh, this job has no risk to it. Then they're like, you don't understand. All bonds are written on a no risk basis anyway. So you're not sharing risk like with insurance. Instead, they're assuming no risk no matter what. If they think that there's a loss coming, they're just out. That's the hard part, I think, for most people to understand. It already seen as a no risk product, or at least it's written that way. And so when they say, hey, there's no risk, I'm like, I get it. I get the point, but it's just not helpful.
That's like my education section of the podcast, and we don't need to spend a lot more time, but I'd love to get to know you a little bit and give you a chance to talk about SwiftBonds specifically. But how did you get into this? And I'd love to just explain too, my passion and the reason for this podcast is I just believe construction is important. We got to build stuff in order to have anything we want. If we want cool AI, we need power and we need data centers. And if we want like our kids to have a good place to learn, we got to build schools. And if we want to stay healthy, we need to build hospitals. So I'm just like passionate about better, cheaper, faster construction projects and serving the owners in this industry. And I wonder if that resonates with you, but tell me a little bit about what motivates you.
But yeah, so that's what we do all the time is we deal with clients to do exactly that. We have clients to do data centers and do infrastructure and do schools and roads and all that stuff, which, I personally believe is the core of America, right? It's what makes us better than everybody else. Now, how I started the business, well, it's oddly, I'm an attorney, right? Years ago, I got tired of just dealing with big files of clients. So I started doing some estate planning and probate work. And to believe it or not, there are probate bonds out there. So I said, hey, if I'm doing these probate bonds, why don't I just do the bonds myself? So I got an insurance license just to do that for my client. And then a bunch of other people I knew say, oh, you do bonds? Well, I need some, right? So I started doing it for attorney friends. And then I'm like, well, heck, if we're doing this for a bunch of different people, and we expanded, kind of along the southern part of the United States, might as well do contract bonds. That's kind of the fun stuff to me, helping clients. Because as we say, really, our job is in some ways just providing paper. But what it really is, it's about helping our clients get to work. Because that's the key here. You don't need to be, fiddling around with our stuff. We want you to get to work and do good work and make sure that gets done. And that's what, quite frankly, most of our clients like to do. They like to do work and they do good stuff. And they don't want to, they're not known for paperwork, which is, our game, unfortunately. And that's the key here, right? How do we get them to work as fast as possible and make the burden on the administrative side a little bit less?
It's cool. Do you see the future of this changing much with AI and tech? Like, is it going to get shaken up much?
Yeah. So let me start with just our business. We use AI all the time, right? And we use it in kind of three different ways. One, just intakes of clients. Two, processing of clients. And then three, making sure that things get reviewed properly. So that's what we use it. So we've got multiple AI processes that we use. We're continuously trying to implement it. We think that on the rest of the industry, yeah, it's going to continue to provide data analytics, process improvements, things that I think that in the past were done with experience. The 50-year-old workman that knows every single thing about every single job in his brain, but they're all retiring. And so suddenly we need somebody to replace that. Well, there's not enough replacement people for the people that are. There's all that knowledge that's being lost. So a lot of the benefits I see in AI are places where, quite frankly, haven't seen it before. And it doesn't have to be, we're changing the whole industry, but we're making a lot of things a lot better. So I see a lot of companies starting to put it here or there, and will continue to do so, I believe, because it just makes them more efficient. They do better work, and things were caught, and checklists were not missed, and efficiency is gained, and safety is high. All those things that you don't really think about that I think you can really help benefit from AI. Rather than, I think a lot of people think of it as a one button push and you're done. I don't like to think about it like that. I think that it's better to say, hey, here's a great way to help make your business better day by day.
I started my career in what I call the forensic niche of construction management. So, working for attorneys on construction related court cases, kind of backwards engineering what went wrong, sometimes financially, sometimes schedule wise. Sometimes it was more of like a building envelope failure and you got water in the building. But it makes me think too, like with bonding specifically, I wonder, my hope for the future with AI and technology is that there will be a little bit more transparency, and it will be harder for like the shady bad actors to hide and get away with things that, in my opinion, that kind of stuff hurts the good guys. Do you think that's the case? And can we encourage people, if you're trying to be shady, it's a good time to stop?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's a good time to stop. And quite frankly, I think that the shady guys miss all of the value that's being brought. They tend to focus so much on cutting the corner that they forget that, hey, if I just do this right, I can do more of it and make a lot more money. The guys that we have that really do really, really well could be shady, but there's no point. They're just making too much money. And so, yes, this is a great time to implement AI systems so that suddenly those margins that you were trying to cut corners to get are already there. And then you can just move forward with getting more and more good work, so you don't have to cut any corners and do anything shady. I do think it's a perfect time to do that.
Really appreciate it, Gary. How can people find you? What do you want to plug?
Yeah, you can find us at SwiftBonds.com and Axcess-Surety.com. That's AXCESS-Surety.com. And we'd love to talk to people that say, hey, here's what you can do, and here's how we can help you out with that. So we're also on all the social channels.
Cool. Have a great one.
All right. Thank you so much.